Okay, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you may be. Hello and welcome to Buddhist Insights Empty Cloud. I'm Bhante Sanathavihari, and today we will continue our exploration of the different contexts and different views that we have of the hungry ghost within the different Buddhist traditions, right? So first we started with Petavatu from the Pali Canon, Theravada tradition, and we talked about it for the first 2 weeks, just focusing on that. And we also brought it in last week. And I shared with you last week the Ulampen Sutra, which is also known as the Ulambana Sutta from the Mahayana tradition. And we're going to today explore another sutta that goes to what might be known as Vajrayana, the Tantric tradition, a sutra from the Esoteric Mahayana tradition. But first, hello to everyone out there. Hello to Bhumika and Manal and Matthias and Gita. Hello to all of you. I see people jumping online here as the number increases of viewers. Hello to everyone. Hello to Nico. Yes. Good Friday to all of you. You're almost done with your work week, hopefully. Maybe you can enjoy this weekend. Take some time to chill out. So nice to see all of you. Hello, Rebecca. Hello to all of you. Okay, so before I start, I'll pay my respects to the Buddha. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Okay, we have some other hellos here from Maria, Kit, and Jay. Hello to all of you. And Jayanta. So today I'll be sharing with you the Preta Mukha Nivalaya Sharakara Dharani Sutta. So in this sutta, we're gonna, see kind of a more elaborate ritual dedicated to appeasing here and sharing merits with our departed ones. So just like last week, some of you had some questions, just like, oh, how could Venerable Maha Moggallana be sad, and if he's an arahant? So we have to understand that within the Mahayana tradition, they have a different perspective of arahants and these characters. And then sometimes I believe this is just like the author's way of trying to connect with the reader, since we're emotional beings, and arahants are very different from us. So sometimes I believe the writer has to take some creative liberties to kind of help us connect with what's going on with them. So you could take it literally or you can take it metaphorically. But I think the message is always very clear, as we see in the last couple of weeks, that the Sangha of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis is the unsurpassable field of merit. And then we have a duty and an obligation and a responsibility towards our departed ones. So these are the two main constant themes, that this thread that continues on, within this tradition for thousands of years, even though other aspects of the tradition, there's new person or beings that are being introduced, and maybe new ways of doing things, or maybe there's even whole new backstories to the characters that we already know. But this same thread, right, of generosity and wholesome actions, and what is the where we can get the best bang for our buck when we do wholesome actions, continues throughout all these traditions. So that's a very interesting thread that I find. And good morning to Maria. Okay, so now I will go into this sutra, and it starts like this. At one time, the Bhagavan was teaching the Dharma to an entourage consisting of the monastic Sangha and a limitless number of bodhisattvas at the monastic hermitage in Kapilavatthu. At that time, Venerable Ananda remained at a distance, having been contemplating and memorizing the Dharma. That evening, in the later part of the night, a very frightening Preta called Flaming Mouth, with a hideous appearance, frail, withered, with flames coming from its mouth, its throat as thin as a needle, with disheveled hair, with long sharp fingernails and teeth, came before Ananda and said to Ananda, "You, 7 days from now, your life will end, and you will be reborn in the realm of Pretas." Having heard that the Preta had said, Ananda became very afraid and responded to the Preta saying, "What can be done about being reborn in the realm of Pretas when my time here is finished, so that I might be liberated from this impending suffering?" The Preta replied to Nanda, "If tomorrow you make Bali offering to Pretas, as numerous as 100,000 million billion grains of sand of the river Ganges, and offer a Magadhan measure of food to each and every one of the many hundreds of thousands of Brahmins and Rishis, and make offerings for my sake to the three jewels, then your life will be long, and I will be freed from suffering of the Preta realm, and I will be reborn as a god in the upper realms." To see the Preta called Flaming Mouth, hideous, frail, and withered, with flames coming from its mouth, its throat as thin as a needle, with disheveled hair and long sharp fingernails and teeth, and to hear such unpleasant and unwelcome words was enough to send shivers through Ananda's body. And in terror he then rose from where he had been sitting and quickly went to the Bhagavan. Arriving in the presence of the Bhagavan, Ananda fell before him, touching the 5 points of his body to the ground. Then, after prostrating with his head to the feet of the Bhagavan, with his body trembling and imploring the Bhagavan, "I beseech you to grant me final relief from being tormented by this suffering," he said to the Buddha. He continued, "I was off at a distance, having been contemplating the Dhamma, when a Preta called Flaming Mouth said to me, 'You, 7 days from now, your life will end, and you will be reborn in the realm of the Pretas.' When I asked what can be done about this so that I might be liberated from the suffering of the Preta realm, the Preta said to me, 'If you make Bali offerings to Pretas as numerous as 100,000 million billion grains of sand in the river Ganges, and offer the finest food to each and every one of the many hundreds of thousands of Brahmins and Rishis and so on, then your life will be long. If I am to provide this, Bhagavan, how can I prepare such a food for so many Pretas, Brahmins, Rishis, and so forth?' 'Do not let this frighten you,' said the Bhagavan to Ananda. 'I have a method by which you can prepare food for many Balis, for Pretas, as numerous as 100,000 million billion grains of sand of the river Ganges, and Brahmins and Rishis and so forth. So do not let this upset you.' Then the Bhagavan said to Ananda, 'I have a mantra, Dharani, called the power of all conquering rays of light, by which all are brought under the influence of immeasurable radiance. When anyone utters this Dharani, there will be food and the finest Bali for Pretas as numerous as 100,000 million billion grains of sand of the river Ganges, and the many Brahmins and Rishis and so forth, so that each and every one of those Pretas and others will receive 7 portions of food weight according to Magadhan measures. Ananda, when I was a Brahmin in a previous life, I had heard this Dharani from the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, and the Tathagata called Vashavarti Guna, and the power of that Dharani, countless Pretas and many Rishis were each given Bali and food, and those that had been born in the realm of Pretas were liberated from suffering and were reborn as gods in the upper realms. Nanda, remember this Dharani. It will increase your merit and even your lifespan when you are reborn." The Bhagavan then uttered this mantra Dharani to Nanda. Namasrava Tathagata Valokite Om Sambara Sambara Hum. The Bhagavan said to Ananda, "Any son of good family or daughter or good family who wishes to lengthen their life or improve and increase their merit, or who wishes to quickly bring to completion the perfection of giving, should recite this Dharani constantly in the morning or even at all times. Then their life will not be cut short. Pour clean water into a clean vessel. Then add a little bit of cooked grains, meal, a pastry, and so forth. Then place your right hand over the top of the vessel, and having sanctified it 7 times with the Dharani that was previously mentioned, you should invoke the names of the 4 Tathagatas as follows. Homage to the Tathagata Prata Ratna by blessing from invoking the name of the Tathagata Prabhuta Ratna. May all the Pretas overcome the non-virtuous karma of having been miserly in their numerous previous lives, and may their collection and merit be brought to completion. Homage to the Tathagata Surupa. By the blessing from invoking of the name of the Tathagata Surupa, may those many Pretas overcome their hideous appearance, and may they take on marvelous form and attitudes. Homage to the Tathagata Vipulagatara. By the blessing from invoking the name of the Tathagata Vipulagatara, may the thirst of many Pretas be dispelled, and may they be satisfied. May they be led to places where offerings are being made, and may they be allowed to eat to their satisfaction. Homage to the Tathagata Abhayakara. By the blessings from invoking the name of the Tathagata Abhayakara, may all be free from all fears of the Pretas, and may all realms of the Pretas be pacified. The Bhagavan told Ananda, sons of good family, and so on. After the blessing, having invoked the names of these four Tathagatas, should snap their fingers 3 times. Then, taking the Bali vessel in their outstretched arms, they should pour it out on a clean ground. It should make Bali offerings in this manner. Each and every one of the Pretas who arrive from the 4 directions, as numerous as 100,000 million billion grains of sand in the river Ganges, will receive 7 portions weight, according to Magadhan measure. These Pretas will be led to and allowed to eat as much food as they wish, and will leave the realm of the Pretas behind, and will be reborn as gods in the upper realms. Ananda, if any monk or nun, or male or female lay disciple, when giving an offering to Pretas, consistently sanctify the food by means of this Dharani, they will bring immeasurable merit to completion, as the merit is indistinguishable from the merit of making offerings to 100,000 million billion Buddhas. They will have long life, merit, luster, be born with strength that will only increase, complete roots of virtue, non-human, yakshas, rakshas of horrible pretas will be able to endanger them or inflict harm on them, and they will have immeasurable radiance for others. Someone who wishes to make offerings to Brahmins and Rishis should fill a single vessel with the purest food, recite this Dharani mantra 7 times, and scatter the food in a clean river. That will cause it to become the most supreme foodstuff of the gods. The Brahmins and Rishis, as they receive the food infused with this mantra, will delight in each and every precious individual offering that have been offered with mantra, and will ripen the merit of those roots of virtue that have been cultivated, each of them in accord with the others, will all at the same time make the prayer. May this person have long life, vitality, power, and may they be comfortable and happy. Moreover, that person, in terms of seeing and hearing in accordance with these intentions, will be completely pure, have unmistaken knowledge, and living the superior life of a brahmacharya, will achieve complete perfection. Further, as the merit would be like that of making offerings to the Buddha Bhagavans, equal in number to 100,000 million billion grains of sands of the river Ganges, all the proponents of false teachings will be unable to do them harm. Any monk or nun or male or female lay disciple who wishes to make offerings to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha should recite this mantra Dharani 21 times over incense flowers of the best food, and then offer them to the triple gem. The food offered by a son of a good family or a daughter of a good family, having become the foodstuff of the gods, will become offering to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha in all the worldly realms of the 10 directions. Those who make such offerings will be endowed with the merit of praising, praying, and rejoicing, and will be constantly praised and watched over the Buddha, Bhagavans. They will be constantly guarded and protected by many gods, and the perfection of giving will be brought to completion, the Dana Parami. Nanda, commit this to memory in accordance with the Dharma, in order that all sentient beings may see and hear it. You should teach it extensively, and you will obtain immeasurable merit. And that's how this sutra ends. And Bali is just another word for food offering here, as I understand it by looking up the definition. It just says a food offering made to a deity or spirit. Such offering may be varied, elaborate. It may be simple or uncut. So here we see a very ritualized version of how to offer, right? When we're looking at the Petavatu and the Pali Canon and in the Anguttara Nikaya, it just simply says, offer. You should offer to the Sangha, and by doing so, you are able to make merit and, in a way, share that merit with your departed ones. But here there's like a set of mantra, right? A recitation that needs to be said. There needs to be the invocation of these four Buddhas. It has to be recited 7 times, right? There's a kind of a concoction that needs to be made in certain containers, and then it needs to be disposed of in a different manner, in a certain place. And I've actually witnessed this, a certain kind of version of this, when I was at Upaya Zen Center once a month. They would do this feeding of the hungry ghost. And within both the Chinese and the Japanese Zen, from what I've seen, they have a set of mudras too that they do while they're doing the chanting. So this is what makes this practice kind of esoteric, right? There's this whole kind of ritualistic, ceremonial kind of practice that's attached to it, this sort of formula that needs to be followed in order for it to be of more benefit. Where in the original setting, it's just really about the intention, right? The intention behind it, and that the offering is of pure intention from the person giving it and the group who are receiving it, who is the Sangha. But here you get to see kind of more detailed kind of version, and I think that's just a natural development, natural cultural development. We're talking about easily 1,000 years after the time of the Buddha, and how we see it today being practiced in different places. We're talking about over 2,500, 2,600 years from the time of the Buddha. So things are naturally gonna become more elaborate. In the beginning, things might be very simple, and then later in the future they become more ornate, right? Depending on the culture. And then we see a similar thing also with languages, right? When we think about languages, we look at the past, and languages tend to be very complicated with a lot of grammar, but over time they end up being simplified and made more efficient, right? There's some sort of efficiency that needs to be tried to make. So everything is subject to change, right? All things change, anicca sankhara. So even these beautiful rituals, these beautiful practices that were started by the Buddha, change due to time, change due to places, and change due to the people that are practicing them, right? And then there's also this constant development of commentaries and post-canonical sutras that are being revealed to people throughout the time that Buddhism has been around, throughout the hundreds and thousands of years. And that also has an influence of how people interpret these things and how people practice them. And here this flaming mouth ghost, right? Flaming mouth. We saw this with Venerable Mahamoggallana's mother in the previous discourse, right? He prepares some food for her to eat, a morsel of rice, and she can't eat it. It turns into a hot coal, so her mouth starts burning on fire, right? So we see the same thing here, another burning mouth ghost. But according to the commentary to this discourse, it's not just any hungry ghost. They say that there's different categories of hungry ghosts, and there's a certain category of hungry ghosts which are called flaming mouth. So most hungry ghosts, even up to this time, where this Dharani, this sutra was composed, they still have the typical features, right? Like they look disheveled, right? They look like they're malnourished. They have a very thin throat, like a needle, and a very big belly. But what's interesting here is that you start seeing like different categories of pretas, and this category of pretas. One of the features or characteristics that they have is that their mouth is always on fire, always on fire, right? It shows their suffering, that they can't fulfill their hunger, that they constantly have to be suffering because of their lack of generosity in previous lives, right? Or their attachment, their craving for things in previous lives. And according to the commentary to this Dharani, it's not just any flaming mouth ghost, but supposedly it was like the king of all the flaming mouth ghosts, right? So just like we have Mara, and then there's the Mara who is the king of all the Maras, and we have Mahabrahma who's the king of all the Brahmas, right? And we have Sakka who's the king of all those gods. So also in the Preta realm, according to this sutra, there's also a king of the flaming mouth Pretas. And That's who appears. And what's interesting is that I saw in other commentaries, some of them suggest that actually this is kind of like all a setup to kind of set up and help Ananda, and that it's not really a flaming mouth ghost, that it was really Avalokiteshvara taking the form of a this flaming hungry ghost, flaming mouth hungry ghost, to teach, right? To teach Ananda this, to give Ananda this opportunity to be able to learn this practice, and to ask the Buddha, also to be able to proclaim it, so then everyone in the future can learn it. So here's another, kind of element that you see kind of in esoteric teachings. You see kind of bodhisattvas kind of project themselves, right, or make themselves appear like people that they're not. There's the story of like the princess, the Naga princess, right? She looks like a little girl, but she's really a very advanced bodhisattva. We saw in the previous sutta last week that some of the bhikkhus are not really bhikkhus, but they're just like emanations of bodhisattvas, right? These bodhisattvas are taking the form of a bhikkhu, of bhikkhus, in order to create the right causes and conditions for the people around them and those beings around them to be able to learn the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma. So these are some of the later elements to that. Many of us, I think most people here are just more familiar with the Pali Canon tradition, right? The Theravada tradition, where you start seeing all these other elements in Mahayana. So it's a very different world that's being presented to us, right? Kind of more similar, very similar, actually, I think, to what we can recognize nowadays in Hinduism. It's kind of that sort of world, a very rich world with multiple stories at different levels, right? And multiple things happening at different levels too. Many messages being sent there. So I really think about like the economy of words, right? We try to pack as much information into everything, and I think this is what I gather is happening in these types of stories. It's just like trying to pack as much information into a single unit. Where in the suttas, especially in the prose part, not in the verses, you kind of see that it's just very plain. Just there it is. This is what you do, and then later, we try to put a lot more in. Later, it appears that more information is being put in there, and there's this whole development that happens through time where people already are familiar with it. They grow up in a Buddhist culture, unlike the time of the Buddha. During the time of the Buddha, there was no real Buddhist culture, right? But as time went on, people were born into Buddhism, right? And then their grandparents were in Buddhism. So there comes this whole kind of intuitive understanding of what the Dhamma is. And that also, helps those people, or filters how people read these things, right? How people interact with these things. So those are just some things that I think we should take into consideration when we kind of read these, later sutras from the other Buddhist traditions. I want to share with you one more sutta that's also kind of like a parallel to this, but it's a little bit different just because of where it was written. Instead of being in North India, this part of the sutta kind of traveled more into kind of Indonesia, Malaysia, and there's where it was found when esoteric Buddhism went there. But I do see that I have some questions, so I'd just like to address maybe like 2 or 3 questions before I move on to the next sutta. Okay, so we just have some more good mornings, hellos. Pandit says, please remember to provide the link to any sutta discussed before talking about it. It makes it much easier. Yeah, a lot. These things, they're difficult and they're not well translated. I don't really trust it. I'm reading from like articles and other things like that. So it's not as easy as like Sutta Central where you can put stuff. But I did put the name of the sutta in the description. So if you like, you can put the name of the sutta and just Google it and something will come out. I'm just not really satisfied with any of the translations. Sud says, Dear Bhante, this sounds out of the norm for the Buddha would say. It sounds so against the idea that each being is the owner of their own karma. Is this Tipitaka? I think I already answered that. Is modern era, is the Preta Yoni considered as a category of narcissism? Pet Yoni. I don't understand what that means. Pet Yoni. If you can just, Yeah, if you can explain that for me, what pet yoni means, then I can try to answer. Okay, so now I'll share the next one with you. So this one's called the female flaming mouth ghost, right? So it's like a female version of this king. And it's a bit shorter, right? So you don't worry, I won't be reading for much longer. And it starts like this: Homage to the three jewels. Once the Blessed One was staying at Banyan Grove in Kapilavastu with a great congregation of monks, a great assembly of bodhisattvas, and a great assembly of other beings, teaching them the Dharma. Then, in the meantime, Ananda was in seclusion, meditating and realizing the Dhamma through single-pointed concentration. During the last watch of the night, the female Preta, Flaming Mouth, came before him and spoke. Ananda, you will die the day after tomorrow and be reborn in the realm of Pretas. Ananda asked, what reliable method is there to avoid this? The female Preta replied, Ananda, if in the morning you offer food and drinks in the amount of 7 large Magadhan bushels to each and every Preta, as numerous as the billions of grains of sand of the river Ganges, and satisfy 100,000 Brahmin ascetics, and make an offering in my name to the three jewels, then your life will be extended, and I will transmigrate from the realm of Pretas to be reborn in the upper realms. Then Ananda saw the female Preta, Flaming Mouth. She was wasted and ugly, with an emaciated body, tongue of flames coming from her mouth and her belly, and mouth shriveled up. Her hair was matted in disarray, and she had long nails and body hair. Hearing her jarring and unpleasant words, he was so afraid that the hairs all over his body stood to an end. He rose from his seat and went hurriedly, very quickly, to where the Blessed One was. On arriving, he prostrated to the Blessed One, and trembling he begged, Blessed One, please protect me. Well gone one, please protect me. I will be killed the day after tomorrow. The Blessed One, I saw the female Preta, Flaming Mouth, and she told me, you will die the day after tomorrow. I asked her, what method is there to avoid it? She replied, if you satisfy Pretas of numerous as the billion of grains of sand of the river Ganges, as well as 100,000 Brahmin ascetics, then your life will be extended. Blessed One, please tell me how to do this. The Blessed One said, the dust gone one Shakyamuni said to the Venerable Ananda, Ananda, do not be afraid. There is a method to satisfying the Pretas and the Brahmin ascetics. Ananda, there is a Dharani called the great power of light that illuminates everything. Just making an offering with this will satisfy Preta as numerous as the billion of grains sands of the river Ganges, so that each and every Preta and Brahmin ascetic will be given 7 Magadhan bushels of food and drinks. Long ago, when I was a Brahmin, I received this Dharani from the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Lokeshvara and the Daskan one Lokeshvara Prabha. With this Dharani, I satisfied numerous countless Pretas and Brahmins, ascetics with food and drinks, and all of them transmigrated from the realm of Pretas and were reborn in the realm of gods. Ananda, remember and accept this. Namasra va tatagata avalokite om sambara sambara hum. Ananda, recite this chant 7 times over the bali for the Pretas. Then, extending your arm, offer it in front of the door, snap your fingers and clap. Immediately after you offer it in this way, all the Pretas of the 4 directions, as numerous as the billions of grains of sand of the river Ganges, will be satisfied, and each Preta will be given 7 Magadhan bushels merely by consuming it. They will transmigrate from the realm of Pretas and be reborn among the gods. Ananda, you should constantly and incessantly relate this to the monks and nuns and female and male devotees around you. For those who act in this way, a heap of merit will be accrued, and their life will be long. They will obtain the combined heaps of merit of 1 trillion thus gone ones, and will become invisible to those spirits that wander countlessly in non-human forms. Bhutas, Pishakas, Kumbandas, and other Yakshas and Rakshas, Gandharas and Gandhavas and Pretas. They will become strong and diligent. They will obtain beauty, charisma, and mindfulness. To satisfy Brahmin ascetics, fill a container with clean water to be offered. Recite the Dharani 7 times and make the offering at any place where water is swiftly flowing. When this is done, Accordingly, Brahmin, ascetic, or numerous as numerous as billions of grains of sand in the river Ganges, will be satisfied with the divine food and drink. Those Brahmin ascetics will be thoroughly satiated, and they will cry, may all be well. In this way, the intention of those beings will be completely purified, and they will have the charisma of Brahmins. They will always have the religious life. They will obtain the roots of virtue and thus gone ones, as numerous as the billions grains of sand of the river Ganges, and all their enemies will be destroyed. Recite the Dharani 21 times over the flowers, incense, perfumes of food and drinks, and then offer them to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. If that is done accordingly, noble sons and noble daughters, monks and nuns, male and female lay disciples, will revere, honor, and worship the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The Buddha fields of the thus gone ones in the 10 directions with the divine offerings and the supreme offerings of the thus gone ones. There will be intention and prophecies of the thus gone ones and will be protected by all the gods. Ananda, go and accept this. Teach it correctly again and again to all beings. Perform all the roots of virtue. Thus have I spoken. So here you see a similar situation, but now it's a female Preta, right? And then again, he's asked Ananda to go to the Buddha, and then the Buddha shares the same verses again, right? And basically the same ceremony again. But this time there's no invocation of all the Buddhas, and it doesn't talk about, if you have understanding and you do this, you get a certain result. If you practice brahmacharyas and you do this, you have a different type of better result, right? So the other one goes more into detail. This one is a bit more brief in what it explains, but it's still basically the same message, and the same message that we saw last week with Mahamoggallana, and still I believe the same message that we find in the original teaching. And I think it's important to, from time to time, kind of look at what the other traditions are saying, just because there's a lot of misunderstanding sometimes. There's seems to be this kind of whole in the past, right? Like, oh, well, they're doing something else. That's not real Buddhism. Or from the other side, oh, they're doing the lower form of Buddhism, right? The Hinayana. And there's kind of this misunderstanding of what is really important. And we see the real core, the core of the Dhamma, the importance, what's really the message behind it hasn't changed. As I said earlier, the same thread continues there. It's just that how that is communicated, right? The importance of merit making, the importance of giving to the Sangha, the importance of honoring one's parents and mothers. That message continues, but the story around it, right? The stories around the message change. So I think when we take time to explore these different traditions, you don't have to be an expert in it, but just from time to time, maybe be curious. It helps us see that, there's this constant message that's there that we can all tap into and that we all share, right? And it's this kind of thread that we're all following and kind of connects us together as Buddhists. I think it's important that we kind of take this approach, and that's why I love coming to Empty Cloud. I mean, you always see all different types of monastics from different traditions. Last time when I was here in the Vasa, there was some Chan monks from Taiwan, and in the past, there's been all types of different monastics here. And then sometimes it just takes a story being told a different way, and it hits us differently, right? For some people, a more elaborate, more rich story, a more maybe more fantastical accounts might bring more sada in some people, some more faith and some more energy. Some people that are like more imagery, right? Symbolism, that also might help them. So I think sometimes these types of stories, we don't have to take them as, canonical, literal, but they might be a benefit if you, take some time to read it. Just like if you were reading verses, like poetry, right? Like poetry, even in the Therigatha and Therigatha, since it's poetry, we shouldn't be taking it literally. The important thing that's being transmitted there is the message, right? Poetry is not it's not like prose. It's not something that should be taken literally, but we still get something from it. So I think there's some more comments or messages here, and let's see. So Nikhil, Peta is in Pali, and Preta is in Sanskrit. Yes, and Are they narcissists? No, I don't think they're uniquely more narcissistic than any other beings, right? Humans are very narcissistic. I mean, there's where we get this idea from, right? Narcissists from human beings, and we're applying this idea of human beings being narcissists to other beings. So the origin of this kind of idea comes from humans. Although in the Western category, it actually comes from a god, right? There was a beautiful young god who got enchanted with his own image by looking in water, and he just got stuck there and he didn't want to move away from it. So there, if we take that, then the gods are also very narcissistic, like narcissists, and get caught up in their own vanity. But humans, are the main culprits that we know. But everyone, to some degree, has this, right? Because they have self-view and they have all the different forms of mana. Mana is self-centered, right? Focusing on themselves. It's very egocentric. So I don't see anything uniquely narcissistic about the Pretas. What is the thing that does keep occurring with the Pretas is that when they were humans, they didn't want to give, right? Or they were very picky about what they gave, or they complained about what they gave. So there's this resistance to dana, right? And that's why in the sutta, the first sutta that I read today, it said that by doing this ritual, you will perfect the dana parami, right? So here we're giving a way to overcome that stinginess, right? So this practice, this Dharani that's giving to overcome Ananda's fear of the flaming mouth hungry ghost is an antidote to those people who are greedy, who don't want to give. Or when they give, they may give, physically, but in their mind, they're resentful, they're hateful, they're angry, they're cruel, they're bitter, right? So this is kind of like the unique aspect of the Pretas that we see, or what leads to becoming a Preta, is they're reluctant to give, and not only are they reluctant, but they hate the people that they're giving, and they mistreat them, like we saw in the other suttas. They mistreated the monks. They talked bad about them. They did all types of stuff to kind of upset the monks and talk bad about the sangha and kick them out and do all these types of things. So that's the real thing that you see. And then once they become Pretas, they have this craving, right? This longing, and they can't satisfy themselves, right? So that's another aspect that you see. They have this deep, unsatiable craving. They cannot be satisfied. And that's why they rely on us, right? They rely on their family members, up to 7 generations, right? To make offerings for their benefit, because there's no way that they can do anything for themselves. Then Nico says, are these stories are described as having actually occurred, or are they narratives for teaching they should be interpreted as that? I've heard both things. So when I've talked to people from the esoteric traditions, I've heard both, but when you read it, it appears that it's literal, right? It appears that it's supposedly something that did take place. But I have also heard some monks and some teachers of, the Vajrayana tradition say that, these are like skillful means, right, to teach. So I've heard both. But usually when we look at something that the Buddha said, for Buddhists, we take it literally, like the Buddha did say this, right? So at least that's what each sutta, if you just take it on its own merit, that's what they're saying. They're saying this is what the Buddha said in that sutta. We can take like a historical perspective and criticize it and, see how that isn't likely because of the time that the sutta came out and the language that's used, right? We can do that. But if you just, take the sutta for what it says, then according to the sutta, the Buddha did say it. There's a good morning from Yushin and Sood. Okay, Kit first. While some of the more esoteric elements of this escape me, these verses feel like strong reminders of the benefits of sharing goodwill and merit. Super interesting thing. Yes. That is the thread that I'm hoping that everyone will catch on to, right? That started with in the beginning about 3 weeks ago, and it's carrying on, and I will continue on to next week, I think next week will be my final Friday that I'll be sharing talks on Hungry Ghosts, because then I will go back to Los Angeles. But yes, I'm just trying to, really convey the message of the benefit of giving and about the benefits of giving to the Sangha and our responsibility to our parents. That's a big thing, because I do see a big difference between how people used to take care of their parents and how people saw themselves fulfilling their duties to their parents in the past or in other parts of the world, and how we're doing it now, or in certain parts of the world where parents are seen as a burden, as an inconvenience to one's own happiness, right? Which just really means sensual pleasures. People neglect taking care of their parents because it's inconvenient. Oh, I need to make more money, or I can't live the type of lifestyle that I want, or whatever. These very material things, they're willing to choose this sensual pleasure and this material convenience over this karmic duty that they have to their parents. When we look at the suttas, whether it's Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, yeah, it's there that it's very important that we should take care of our parents, and that duty is greater than our own personal convenience of wanting to have a better job or make more money or have a big house or have like happiness or peace of mind, or whatever we think is the justification for that. Now, obviously, if parents are abusive, that's a different case. But if it's just that they're just regular parents, imperfect like everyone else, but for your own right, your own desires, or you might justify it for my family, for my wife and my kids will live a better life if I send my parents somewhere else. There's where we start getting into problems. Parents could have easily done that too. Oh, wow, this baby is such an inconvenience, just give it up. I'll give it up for adoption. I should just get rid of it, leave it in the street because it's not letting me go out and have fun like I used to before I was a parent. I mean, we would consider that type of parent. We have some reservations about, a parent. We might have some critiques about a parent who does that. But it's not as obvious to us when it's turned the other way around, right? We feel like, oh no, as a child, and I don't really have that type of duty or responsibility to my parents. But we do, actually. We do. We have to pay it forward. We have to reciprocate for all they've done for us. And now Sud says, Bhante, is there any sutta evidence that says some of these addictions that people have in life will lead to Preta life? Addictions that people have in this life? I mean, you do see things that people that hoarders, right? Like hoarding money, especially hoarding resources. I don't know if that's an addiction, right? But like that is one thing that appears to be very well connected with the Pretas in the lower realms, right? Like being a person who just doesn't want to share, who wants to keep everything to themselves, who's very greedy and miserly. So in that sense, right, someone who's addicted to their own things, who's addicted to hoarding wealth and resources, if we consider that an addiction, that would be the theme that's more recurrent when it comes to people being reborn in the Preta realm. Then Dhamma Learner says, Bhante, your talks are helping me reconcile the understanding of the Mahayana stories to the Pali Sutras. The Mahayana Sutra seems to be so different, but your talks are showing how to understand them. Okay, thank you. Nico, the antidote can be to contemplate as a way to counteract resistance to giving generosity. Thank you. This is a learning lesson for me, I think. Yes. So we have to see the benefits of giving, right? In the gradual training, especially in the Digha Nikaya and the first couple suttas, the Buddha really emphasizes on the gradual training, which starts with the benefits of giving, right? So that's like where we have to start on the path, recognizing the benefits of giving, of not being self-centered, of not being selfish, right? That's why in right intention we have nekama, which is the first one of the sankappas, right? Right before non-anger and non-cruelty. So yes, right in the beginning, we start with being able to share, not hoarding, not keeping to ourselves, but giving. Okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Oh, it's been a long time since I've had to read Devanagari script, but yes. Thank you, Nikhil. And Sud, so can someone be very generous and end up in the Preta anyway? I guess. I mean, there's suttas where like in the, not suttas, but the story to the Dhammapada verses, right? With that very young boy who at the last moment of life goes to refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha when the Buddha comes into his town because he's passing away. He's reborn in a heavenly world. So we can do the inverse of that, and maybe if you have a greedy thought, you have a thought of hoarding and not wanting to give, that that last moment can be very impactful, and have more weight to determining where you might be reborn. That's why we always have to be vigilant, right? We always have to be very focused on what we're thinking, what's going on in our mind. What kind of emotions and thoughts are going on in our mind. We always have to be on guard, and because any one of these moments can send us on this kind of sequence of events, right? That can lead us down an unwholesome path, maybe even an unwholesome rebirth, a very painful rebirth. Okay, those are all the questions online. I don't know if Venerables wanted to say anything. No?
I was thinking of Sue's question. There's one sutta talking about breaking the 5 precepts, and the Buddha goes through each one of the 5 and describes the consequences. And for each one of them, he says that one would fall into the lower realms, the lower realms in general, even in hell. And so, but it also lists lesser consequences. So, in regard to addictions, it says that one who takes intoxicants will be reborn in the lower realms, even in hell. The least result would be that if they're fortunate enough to be reborn as human beings, they will be reborn with mental illness. So I guess one way that addictions is indicated as being a possible cause of rebirth in the Preta realms, as ghosts, as you fall into the lower realms. It's usually what I've seen in the suttas. I've never seen indication that a lack of generosity would be a cause of being reborn in the lower realms, but rather the fault against the 5 precepts of the 10 courses of unwholesome action. I think we saw that in some of the commentarial stories you were talking about last week, with the woman who abused the monks.
Yes.
And the first one, the man who was joined a band of thieves, and he was waiting with a club, guarding them to kill someone who was going to come behind them or something. I'm talking about the beginning. You opened talking about the unsurpassable field of merit, and we have this in the chant that we do frequently, and it comes up frequently in the suttas. The quality of the sangha, the noble sangha, the sangha of the triple gem, and the Buddha says that it's the sangha of the triple gem that is the unsurpassed field of merit for the world. Yes. Right. Okay. And the way they define it is. That is the 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. Okay, meaning those who have attained path or fruit or both. Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's and then the last line of the qualities of the sangha is that they are the unsurpassed field of merit for the world. Right. And so the way I'd always seen that interpreted, and the way I understood it, was that because it's defined in terms of attainment. It doesn't make any mention of monastic status. But it could be either a layperson or a monastic. Okay. I wonder if you had any response to that. If you heard of a different interpretation of that.
Bhante, so at least from the way I see the word sangha being used, in these suttas, I would say virtually most of the time refers to monastics. So if we see like sangha, I think it's telling us monks and nuns. But then, yes, that's true. If we talk about like on the path and attainments, then it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be a monastic. So I think here's maybe a scenario we can have our cake and eat it too, right? Like, it can be both. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It's maybe just the Buddha wants to explain in different ways.
Yeah, so in these suttas that you've gotten from like these Tibetan suttas, for example, when we refer to the sangha, referring to it as the monastic sangha. And I think this is typically how the term is used in Vinaya. In the Theravadan school, also, if you're talking about sangha, I mean a certain number of a group of bhikkhus, for example, for the Bhikkhu Vinaya, and I assume it's the same for the Bhikkhuni Vinaya. Then when we talk about the only one that I've seen associated with the term unsurpassed field of merit for the world is the one who's talking about the sangha of the triple gem, the 4 pairs, and the 8 kinds of noble beings. Okay. One thing I liked about these suttas, we're going on quite a bit on this. The last thing I apologize, is that they bring in the aspect of worship.
Yes.
Okay, as a way of making merit. So it isn't just making dana, but these mantras and so on they have also include worship with it. And we have a verse in the Dhammapada, which is that no matter how many gifts and offerings one may make over the course of an entire year, they do not match the merit of worshiping one who is consummate. Okay, yeah. So if we can associate some worship with our giving, or as part of our lives and share that merit with our deceased, then that'd be even much more meritful. By that standard, by the Theravada also.
Yeah, but that's why sometimes, the path is described as like starting with saddha, right? So first, even in the suttas themselves, it says one takes refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. One recognizes that the Buddha is completely perfect, right? He's awake and all the qualities. So that's like the first step, and then all the other teachings come. So like we have to start off with saddha, with faith. Because if you don't have faith in a person or institution, you're not going to listen, right? So like it's not like blind faith where you have to have 100%, but there needs to be some sort of faith in the beginning for you even to be receptive to that person or want to do it. If there's no faith, then you won't even show up. That's why some people were walking around. They said some people came and they bowed to the Buddha. Some sat down. Some shared their names. Some didn't do anything. They stayed quiet and they were just like walking around in the back, right? So there's like different levels of people's faith, and usually the people who weren't listening to the Buddha are not the ones in the sutta who get the benefit, right? Like they remain in their ignorance because they were just like doing other things. They didn't want to recognize the nice qualities of the Buddha. Okay, there's 2 questions here before we end. Bhante, Manal says, Bhante, Sud, can someone be very generous and end up in the Preta anyway? Yes, I think so. Yeah, we can't talk about absolutes. There's a sutta where they asked the Buddha, others say that killing leads to hell and everyone who kills goes to hell. Does the Buddha say that? The Buddha goes, no, I don't say that. I don't say that everyone that kills goes to hell. So the killing leads to hell, right? And if someone keeps killing, it'll take them in that direction. But he doesn't make a definitive thing like every single person who kills will go to a lower birth and go to hell necessarily. So there's things that we can do, right, to change. So that's why Buddhism is not a fatalistic, right? It's not like deterministic completely where you just have this faith and there's nothing you can do about it. You're just going to have to deal with everything. No, we're taught the law of karma, the theory of karma, and able to, in order to us to be able to change, to be able to change and improve so we can change our destination where we're heading to. Manal then says, Bhante, is there a distinction in merit earned with generosity is shown to a Preta considering themselves having been reborn in a state due to their lack of generosity? So there does seem to appear to be a special type of action that's going on when we give to the Sangha in order to share merits with our departed ones. In the first suttas that I think it was the first week that I shared a sutta, it says that actually they're the only ones who can receive. Only the Pretas. It says not gods, not humans, not animals. There's another one. There's like all these different. No one can receive the benefits of giving except for the Pretas, our departed ones. They're the only ones who can receive it, right? So according Janasoni Sutta, I think Anguttara Nikaya, it says that. So they're the only ones who can receive when we do this offering of merit. But the person who's asking the Buddha, he goes, what if there's no one there? Like, what's the point of doing it? The Buddha goes, it's unfathomable. You have 7 generations of parents from 7 previous lives. Some relative is bound to be there. So you might as well do it. And even if there was no one there, that good intention of giving, right? That merit you're making for yourself is good enough to justify the action. So just go ahead and do it, right? So we shouldn't worry too much if we do have family members there or not. You should do it anyways because it's a meritorious action for yourself. And it sets an example for future generations. And then when we invite other beings, we invite them to rejoice, anumodana, right? So they are not necessarily receiving our merit, but we're like, look, everyone, we're doing such a nice thing. And then they become happy because we're doing a wholesome action, right? They rejoice in a wholesome action. They recognize that it's good, right? And their mind becomes pure and clean and happy because they're like, oh, that's such a nice thing, right? So in that way, they also benefit from it. But so the Pretas do hold a special position when it comes to these kind of ceremonies. They're in a unique position where they can kind of more directly receive the punya that we're doing. Nico says, did you say that the graduated training are in the Digha Nikaya and generosity of giving up is discussed in right view in the Eightfold Path? Yeah, it's all over the suttas when it talks about the gradual training, but from what I remember, it's a constant theme that happens in the Digha Nikaya especially. I think Bhikkhu Bodhi said that the Digha Nikaya the intention of it was to be directed outwards to new converts, new people that are just hearing the Dhamma for the first time. So that's why you have this kind of gradual training path to guide people from the beginning to the end. So yeah, I invite everyone to read the suttas. If you have a chance, go into the Digha Nikaya, and you'll see this theme, right, of the gradual training. You see a lot of focus on sila, right? It talks about like the 3 levels of sila, and the benefits of having a good rebirth, like why to have a good rebirth, why go to heaven. And then there's the higher training or the unique teachings of the Buddhas, which we all know as like non-self and anicca, dukkha, anatta, and paticca samuppada. That comes later after you have this, firm establishment. But as John reminded me, actually the first thing is having faith in the Tathagata too. You have to have faith in him, even to listen. Because if you don't have faith in the Buddha, he's going to start talking about giving. You're going to be like, who is this guy? I don't care. Like, what does he know? Right? So first we need to have faith in the Buddha, and that we trust him. And then after we trust them, we'll be willing to listen. And then we'll listen to his teachings about the benefits of giving and morality and being, having working towards a good rebirth. Then a Korean friend of ours, sorry, I can't read in Korean, but the question is in English. It is okay, monks, to have tattoos. I think all traditions have a different interpretation of it. From what I see nowadays, it appears to be okay. I think in the past, in certain traditions, it was even more welcomed. If we looked at Southeast Asia before modernity, a lot of monks had like these tantric tattoos all over the place to protect them from evil spirits. There's even a Zen story that I know about a monk who got all these tattoos, but he forgot to tattoo his ears. So then when he fell asleep, a ghost came and ripped off his ears because he didn't have the sutra on his ears. They weren't protected. So if you look, you'll see that tattoos do have a long tradition in Buddhism. But, from what I've seen, a lot of things in Buddhism changed when they interacted with the West because they wanted to appeal to Western standards. Like, oh, we're going to make our Buddhism very hyper-rational and philosophical and scientific and more like, I don't know, appealing, like everyone has to cover up and no tattoos, and we have to kind of restrict women more, and that didn't only happen with like Christianity with the West, but also when Islam came into India. We see this kind of same thing happening to Indian culture where they start adapting a lot of the cultural norms, and some of them are more restricting, right? So then we see kind of this more restrictive practices infiltrate Buddhism itself. So yeah, I think it just depends. I've seen so many monks now, even like traditional Asian monks, and when I look at the history and see the pictures of like old monks from 100 years ago, or read about them, you'll especially hear like in Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos, monks who have all this special yantras tattooed on them. Okay, I understand. Thanks. I am Korean, but I like Theravada. Oh, very good. Keep joining us. If you have a chance later on for Monk Chat, you can ask more questions like this one about tattoos and things that are not related to the talk in itself, but you probably asked it because I have tattoos. So that's a fair question. Fair enough. Okay, everyone. So we've come to the end. Thank you so much for joining us. May you be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. Goodbye. Yes, John.
Maybe stay online stay live for another minute.
Yes, John. Yes.
I wonder if you want to take the opportunity not only to talk a little bit more about Monk Chat this evening, and maybe about the teaching programs coming up over the weekend.
Okay.
Before signing off, so people know about them.
So if you're in and around the New Jersey area, especially West Orange, where you'll find Empty Cloud, we do have in-person programs. It's not just all online, so you can come and visit us tomorrow. We have a evening meditation program that's from 6 to 7:30 in the evening, and then we have a Sunday program. The official Sunday program it's from 1 to 4, a meditation program. But there's the unofficial one where you come before and you join us for the almsgiving, and you can also make merit that way, right? We talked about these last couple of weeks the benefits of making merit. So here's your opportunity to actually make merit and give to the monks and dedicate that merit to your departed ones. So if you want to join for the unofficial version, then I would say come around 10:30 or 10 o'clock to help set up for the lunch dana. And if you just want to come for the meditation and the Dhamma talk on Sunday, then you can come at 1 o'clock. Is from 1 to 4. So those are the programs we have in person here at Empty Cloud, Buddhist Insights during the weekends. And then we have the live streams that are twice a day from Wednesday to Friday. So you're welcome to join us for all of us.
And we have the air conditioning is turned on today. We'll have the air conditioning on.
We will have the air conditioning on, everyone. Do not let the heat deter you. We will make it a nice Sukhavati here. Okay. May everyone be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. Bye-bye. And